using the parlays against one another, right, and being able to get a little bit of juice consig, I found to be a little interesting.
Believe me, all the rhombuses and parallelograms are constantly trying to search and find out those things every day. It's one of the battles that you know, as you expand the menu, you encounter new battles.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Pharrell, coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage Late
This sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Using the parlay.
Welcome to hour number 3 right here on this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid, all across the SportsGrid network. That is SportsGrid. He is Donnie Rightside. I am Ben Stevens. Our third and final hour up until 11 a.m. Eastern time. A night off from NBA playoff action, but the conference finals are not through. Game 5 tomorrow in Minneapolis. The early prop perspective later in this third and final hour. We'll get ready for action on the ice as well. Donnie Draisaitl up and in. Game number 4 in Edmonton between the Oilers and the Stars. And a look back on game number 4 last night in Sunrise between the Panthers and the Rangers. So much to get to here in this third and final hour, and a ton of Major League Baseball plays to break down for you on this full Wednesday MLB slate.
Yeah, we got some fadeable pitchers that we'll take a look at. And also, what do we love here on Wednesday Hump Day? Helps us get us through the week just a little bit better by having afternoon baseball and also night baseball to sort of carry us over. Fantastic stuff on the horizon. And yes, that does include maybe a reappearance, because I don't believe Draisaitl had a point last game. Maybe a 2-point game effort we're waiting for tonight in Edmonton for them to even that series up. But a lot to get to in hour number 3.
I love it, DRS. I do love it. Yep. So as we start this third hour, it's a topic we discussed with James Young. We're a month away from the 2024 NBA draft, the opening round on Wednesday, June 26th. Will Bronny James hear his name called on night number 1 of the 2024 NBA draft? An interesting report from our guy, Shams Charania of FanDuel TV yesterday, that Bronny James had multiple workouts scheduled, but has canceled all but 2 for the LA Lakers. Yeah, that makes sense. And the Phoenix Suns, and that the Suns are legitimately interested in taking Bronny James potentially with the 22nd overall pick in that opening round. We'll get Donnie's thoughts on your thoughts on this new development. Before we hear from the people, though, confirmed this morning from many sources and multiple reports out there that, as we would expect, with the deadline to declare officially to stay in the NBA draft or return to college coming our way tomorrow, or maybe even later tonight at midnight Eastern, Bronny James is going to forego the remainder of his college eligibility and, as expected, remain in the 2024 NBA draft. So where will Bronny James first play his professional basketball? That was the question for all of you in Fade the Public. You know, DRS, I was really expecting to get some heat here for this poll. It seems that Bronny James is a guy that moves the needle either which way. Not as many votes as you would hope for at SportsGrid on Twitter. Which team will select Bronny James in the 2024 NBA draft? The Lakers, who are the favorites at plus 160. The Suns, the second best price, the only one that is also 3 digits at plus 750, or other. That's 28 other NBA teams. And right now, the Lakers and other in a dead heat, nearly at 42% a piece in this Fade the Public poll. Which way did you vote, DRS?
Yeah, I actually voted here for the Los Angeles Lakers at a plus 160 price because I think that's what makes the most sense here, and also from a league perspective as well. Do you want to draft Bronny James knowing that he might not be a fit on your team because of a pipe dream that you think if you draft Bronny James, that LeBron James will opt out of his Lakers contract and move across country to go to whatever place he's in? That's not happening here. And you also know the feelers behind the scenes, which we're starting to see the power broker that LeBron James and Rich Paul are.
Yep.
Declining two-way contracts. This guy's going to be an NBA player, and he's going to decline every other workout, which there was 10, now it's down to 2. So it looks like it's either going to be the Phoenix Suns or it's going to be the Los Angeles Lakers. And having said that, I don't think if the Phoenix Suns draft him here, it must be one of those things where LeBron James almost signs off on, like, you know what? Maybe we'll make our way around to playing, but I want you in a great position for yourself. And I think that could be a team to do it. Learn from a lot of superstars. You get your playing time, come off the bench, and so be it. Because otherwise, why would it just be those 2 places? Because LeBron James isn't going to opt out and go to Phoenix. LeBron James is staying in Los Angeles. So I think it's the best of both worlds. If there's a place that wants you that you're not going to be in Los Angeles, I want it to be Phoenix. That's really what it's boiled down to. And also keep in mind on this, from a betting perspective, I just need to hear the words that LeBron James is going to be in attendance at the draft. That means he's a guaranteed first-round draft pick where he's going at this point here, because that means LeBron James is not showing up to draft night with his son to be embarrassed and not going in the first round. You can read between the tea leaves in this one. It's going to happen. LeBron James' son is going to be a first-round draft pick. It's just a matter of who those 2 teams are going to be, Lakers and or Suns.
So Rich Paul, LeBron's agent, one of his best friends, is also the agent representing Bronny James. And Rich Paul was on some sort of telecast secondary screen experience and mentioned that LeBron James is a free agent. Technically, LeBron has not opted out of his contract just yet, but all reports state that he will do that. He has until the end of June, which is actually a few days after the NBA draft, to officially make that declaration. What it means is LeBron can opt out of his player option for this upcoming 2024-25 season with the Lakers. He then is officially a free agent, but more than expected, he will re-sign in LA. I think what Donnie just alluded to is something that maybe would seem too commonsensical for this conversation. That LeBron opts out but re-signs in LA, entering year number 22 of his NBA career. And maybe although his wish and his desire for the entirety of his life in his NBA career has been to stick around enough to play with his son, Bronny James, on the same team, that if the option isn't there, and Bronny James is earning reserve steam in the What was that?
I like that.
Did
Did that go out over the air? I loved it.
I don't.
We're heating up now, Bronny James, man. Get that info going.
Whatever that was just scared the living daylights out of me, like we had some telecommunication coming in to tell us to not talk about Bronny James anymore. But the point being, could there be a potential where LeBron James re-signs with the LA Lakers and understands that in the draft process, maybe it doesn't work for LA, he can't be the puppet master that he wants to be, and allows Bronny James to, as Bronny said at the NBA Draft Combine a few weeks in Chicago, he wants to kind of be his own guy. He wants people to learn not LeBron James' son, but just Bronny James, the basketball prospect. And I will say this. We showed the stats for Bronny James in his only year of college basketball at USC, averaging less than 5 points per game, about 3 rebounds in less than 20 minutes. No, they are not good. No, they are probably not worthy of an NBA draft selection. But what you do in college does not always translate to being a successful NBA player and vice versa. Often in the NBA, guys that go in the lottery show a promise as a pro prospect not necessarily a first-team runaway unanimous All-American in college basketball. So can Bronny James play at the professional level? Absolutely. Does he get his stock upped by the fact that he is LeBron's son? Yeah, I think we can say that as well. Both things can live in harmony, and we can have that discussion and still say that Bronny James is probably worth a draft pick in one of these 2 rounds in what is widely considered the worst NBA draft class in the last 2 decades.
Exactly. I mean, you want to talk about coming up aces in your life, not only being born LeBron James' son at this point and all the talents that come along with it, but also playing basketball underwhelmingly at USC and then being thought of as a first-round draft pick because your dad, and also, as Ben you just pointed out, a historically bad draft year. It's coming to perfect. Like, in no way, we wouldn't spend 1 ounce of 1 minute talking about Bronny James with those whack statistics at USC on a horrendous basketball team that he barely even made an impact on. And now we see him going round number 1 because, again, he won the gene pool year. He won Powerball. He's LeBron James's kid. By the way, if LeBron James didn't even play last year and was a student manager, he probably would go in the first round if LeBron James said so because he would like his guy to be on his team with him. Just the way it is, the way it works now.
So that wasn't my point, just for what the record is, just so we can state that. My point was almost the complete exact opposite of what Donnie said. But, hey, the Lakers remain the favorites at plus 160 to draft Bronny James. The Phoenix Suns, the only other team with a 3-digit price at plus 750. Maybe Matt Ishbia is just playing the long game, right? Chess, not checkers, and trying to get a whole lot of draft assets moving forward, or maybe he's crazy enough to actually draft Bronny James in the first round. Who knows? Daily Basis with Craig Mish next.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report, and people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Wayne Gifford came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offensive defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify in these majors. You got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness. And I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. Mm-hmm. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
Live right here on this Wednesday, a very full Major League Baseball slate around the big, so it's a perfect time for the Daily Bases with our MLB insider and the host of Newswire, which starts at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. That is Craig Mish. Craig, as always, thank you for being here on this Wednesday. A ton of great matchups to break down with you today around the bigs.
Yeah, I think today is a very exciting day if you like pitching, because I think we have some really good pitching matchups coming up today.
Yeah.
And in addition, you're getting Paul Skeens pitching once again today for Pittsburgh, in addition to Jared Jones. So if the Pirates are going to make a move toward the postseason, it's probably got to start today, right?
Absolutely so. Skeens Day in the second leg of a doubleheader in Detroit. Tarek Skubal and Jared Jones in the first of a game that was rained out yesterday in the Motor City. Great day of pitching in Detroit. Pretty good night of pitching in the Pacific Northwest as well, at least on paper. George Kirby gets the start for Seattle. Justin Verlander on the other side for the Astros. Craig, the opening two games of this four-game midweek set have gone the way of the Mariners. They're a slight home favorite today in game number 3. Will the Astros finally get their first win of this series?
Yeah, look, right now, Seattle has got an incredible home field advantage that's really hard to bet against. They have one of the best records in the American League. They seem to have really carved out a niche playing there. I know these games are late at night. The only one up really watching is Donnie texting me at like 1 in the morning how great Seattle is playing. You know, and he's watching up until like 4 in the morning usually on these games. But look, the Mariners right now, if they could just get their pitching sorted out, I know George Kirby's going to throw today. I kind of do like Seattle and play that home field advantage. Look, Verlander's done a good job. We can say that's fair. He's done a good job and sort of stabilizing that rotation. But he's got to probably be as good or anybody better in that rotation if Houston's going to go far. It's good to see Abreu back in the lineup. They definitely need him to perform as well. But in a one-game scenario today, I think why would you, basically – let the trend be your friend is what they say. Seattle's playing great at home. Just take the Mariners. Make it easy.
Seattle Mariners here currently lead the AL West here, Craig. You take a look at them at the FanDuel Sportsbook, a favorite to win that division at a -110 price. And there's those Houston Astros who still can't get out of their own way and do sit 5.5 games back at 24-31, but still priced at a +180 to win that West. Also followed up by the Texas Rangers, +350. If we're looking at those top three teams, are we still giving the Astros a lot more expectations to win it than we should be at this point?
I think the expectation, Donnie, is 2 months of the season are over. They've played as poorly as they have in about 5-6 years through the first 2 months of the season. It's fair to say that that's the reason why if they don't make the postseason, we'll look back to April and May and the end of March as the reason why not. But there's just so many games left, over 100 games. And if the Astros could just play to who they have been in the past, then they could just creep around 500 and get in. I'm a little bit more worried about Texas, to be honest with you, at this point. I'm not really sure what's going on there. Major hangover. We'll talk about them going into the season after winning the World Series last year. Seattle, to me, right now, I know they're favored to win the division. If they continue to play well, their window is open. I compared them at the beginning of the year to Toronto. You would think that both of those teams would make a major push to get very deep into the playoffs, and it does look like Seattle, between Seattle and Toronto, is going to be the one.
The Mariners, the only team in the American League West to be above 500, or at least not 3 games below 500 or better. 3.5 game lead for the M's over the Rangers, who got a win in the opening game of the World Series rematch yesterday behind a 3-run shot from Corey Seager, his 7th home run in as many games as Texas wins the opener 4-2. The Rangers favored to win the second game of this midweek set as well. Some day baseball in Arlington. But, Craig, you said you're more concerned around Texas. What would you pinpoint is maybe the reason for this prolonged World Series hangover?
Yeah, look, I think it's pretty simple. The Rangers slugged their way through the regular season and got their way to the World Series with the bats. And they're just not hitting like they were. When they score 5 runs a game, what's their record? Like 16-5, right? That was sort of the way that they got there last year. They're just not hitting nearly as much. On the flip side, I just watched the Diamondbacks play several games against Miami. I got to tell you, I was not impressed at all. I don't know what's going on with their offense either. So this is just one of those games this afternoon where I look at that graphic, and if I could, I just push it to the left and say, show me another one, because I have no idea what to make of these two teams. They're just both struggling. I don't know which way this is going to go. Here's what I know. If the Rangers start hitting, they'll probably get back to the postseason. But if they hit like they have all season long, they're not going to. I know it's really rudimentary, analysis. It's just the way that I look at it.
Not having a great season. And also Seager, 7 games, 7 home runs. Maybe he can single-handedly win a couple baseball games here for the Rangers. But if we keep it on the diamond today, we do have a day doubleheader. 12:40 start between Pittsburgh and Detroit, followed by the second game at 4:10 Eastern. It's going to be Jones versus Skubal in game number 1, Skeens versus Montero in game number 2. The favorite in the first game, Skubal, minus 154 price. The second game of the doubleheader, Skeens, is a minus 148 price. Pittsburgh on display today with their young fireballs.
Yeah, and Donnie, Detroit is just not a good offensive team. There's a lot of strikeouts piling up for that team. The thing is that sometimes, it's funny, sometimes players don't play both ends of the doubleheader. So it's like, I want to take the starting pitcher in the game today that Javier Baez is in the lineup on the other side for Detroit. I got to make sure that he's in the lineup and play the over on that K-prop. If he sits in one of those games, I don't know that I want to, but this guy, unfortunately, has just been a strikeout machine for the Tigers since he signed with them in that horrific contract that they gave him. So wait on the lineups, and once you get them, I think you can determine that little bit of a nugget. Maybe play that one.
6.5 the total for Jared Jones and in the first game of 2 in Detroit. Wow. 7.5 is the over-under strikeout prop for Paul Skeens. In the second of the doubleheader, the under has the juice. I've never seen this. There's a special Paul Skeens market and window on the FanDuel Sportsbook. Paul Skeens' velocity of first pitch, over 101 miles per hour plus 340. 100.1 to 101 plus 176, 99 to 100 exactly plus 240, under 99 plus 280. Craig Mish, what's the best bet before you go?
I mean, this is ridiculous. They shouldn't even have these available. Like, I mean, come on. I mean, seriously? Like, somebody make a call. Throw a changeup. Under 101.
Throw a change. Hey, integrity though. For the other line.
Terrible.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Lane Kiffin came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offensive defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. Mm-hmm. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
A full Major League Baseball slate on this Wednesday. By the way, a small sprinkle on Paul Skeens under 99 miles per hour for his first pitch of the game against the Tigers in the second leg of a doubleheader. Somebody make a call. We got to see a changeup or a slider to start. Although Paul Skeens might throw like a 99.7 mile per hour slider. So regardless, we're hoping he starts with the off-speed stuff to begin the game today in that second leg of the doubleheader in Detroit. Let's go elsewhere around Major League Baseball to get things going. The Royals and the Twins throughout this midweek series. Minnesota has taken both of the first two games. But enter Seth Lugo and KC in game number 3 today in the Twin Cities. Lugo, DRS, 8-1 this year with a 1.74 ERA. And the Royals an underdog. That's my best bet. That's buy for me right there.
It'll be interesting because this game does trend towards an under. You look at that 7.5, 70 degrees with 6-mile-an-hour winds blowing in from the east, blowing in from right field. Maybe that's in the east in that ballpark, though, on that update I just gave you. So we'll just play it off as that way. But if we are breaking down these two pitchers, Lugo has been really, really good. You take a look at his numbers on the season right now. 13th on the card today, which isn't bad at a 95 xFIP minus, but also some of those numbers, non-analytics, are really adding up, Ben. A 135 ISO and a weighted on base percentage of 241 through 133 batters he's faced over the past 30 days. If you take a look at the season, 286 batters to 128 ISO and a 264 weighted on base percentage. So it's not as if we're getting uneven starts, like, okay, 2 good ones, 2 bad ones. He's been pretty consistent all the way through. Now let's flip it over to Kansas City. Ober's going to be on the mound for the Minnesota Twins. His number's slightly higher than what we just talked about, Lugo, but still has some pretty good statistics with a 99 xFIP minus on the season. He's been right about average. 186 ISO power number, 305 weighted on base percentage. Doesn't give away a lot of free passes. He's under 4.7 walks per at bat. And also taking a look at the K percentage, around 27%. It's been pretty good. Neither one of these lineups really stand out. So to me in this game, instead of a side, I don't think they get to 8 runs in this one. The under's probably the play.
Yeah, total trending its way down at 7.5. The under has the juice at minus 120. As Craig discussed, as we have shared, a lot of great pitching matchups on the MLB card for this Wednesday. That includes in Baltimore. Corbin Burns gets the start for the O's. They're booked as a home moneyline favorite against the Red Sox, who throw out Cutter Crawford, who has been sensational this year for the Sox as well. That total just 7.5. What do you like in Baltimore?
Yeah, you're probably looking at another under. And also, this one's 68 degrees with the wind blowing out to right field. So that might help just a little bit. But again, you got to be able to beat some of these pitchers. You take a look exactly. Maybe that one's in the east down there for us. Corbin Burns, a 77 xFIP minus number. He's been absolutely sensational this season. Then you take a look at Cutter Crawford, who's right around average with his xFIP minus number at a 102. But if you are looking at the past 30 days, haven't been as good as the first parts of the season for Cutter Crawford. That ISO power number slightly above average now to 180 over the past 30 days, and a weighted on base percentage combined at 330, right about average. So you have one above average pitcher in Corbin Burns, one average pitcher in Cutter Crawford. Probably leans towards Baltimore, but also, as I said, they're 2 good hitting lineups here. But some of the pitching performances we might get today do lean towards the under, and it certainly does here down in Baltimore.
Getaway day in the heart of New York City. In Flushing, we go to Queens at Citi Field. The Dodgers looking for a sweep. Been a weird series. Memorial Day Monday scheduled between L.A. and New York. Rained out. Doubleheader yesterday. The Dodgers snap a 5-game skid. They win both of the 2 games in the doubleheader. Getaway day. So an early start at Citi just after 4 p.m. Eastern time for Los Angeles. They're a road favorite once again. The Dodgers favored in 55 of 57 games this year, seemingly to be 56 of 58. Will L.A. pull off the sweep of all 3 games in this set against the Mets?
They're favored to do so, but what are we going to get out of Peterson here? No backtracking here on the details for 2024, going up against a really, really good lineup here for the LA Dodgers bats, who haven't really shown up over the past week and a half, but yesterday, as we talked about it, back-to-back wins in a doubleheader. You get that good momentum heading into today and that bad taste out of your mouth. And what are we getting out of the New York bats going up against Paxton? Here's the issue. Last game finally caught up to Paxton. That high xFIP minus gives up a home run early, 3 runs lead to that first inning that he just pitched. And now you take a look at a lineup that is very underwhelming, but Nimmo, Martinez, and Mark Venutos, the third baseman here, sticking out as possible RBI chances. But if we are looking at some of the overall numbers, there's 29 pitchers on the card today, Ben, that I rated here with xFIP minus, minimum 20 innings pitched. 29th on the card, It's James Paxton. How about that? But it's tough to go against a pitcher without really any statistics in 2024. Mets are bad. I don't know how you back them, but Paxton can be hit.
More baseball plays later on. The Prop Perspective up next.
Every missed call, the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Lane Kiffin came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offensive defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
Game number 4 of the Western Conference Finals tonight on the ice in the Stanley Cup playoffs out in Edmonton. It was game number 4 last night of the Eastern Conference Finals in Sunrise between the Panthers and the New York Rangers. For the Prop Perspective, a look back on what we saw last night. OT once again between the Panthers and the Rangers. A look forward at the rest of the ECF. And Game 5 tonight, the Jack of all trades. It's a Prop Perspective Wednesday with FanDuel's Tom Vecchio live right here on this Wednesday on the early line. Vecchio, thank you for being here. Sorry about your Rangers last night. They won games 2 and 3 in overtime. Florida returns the favor last night. But we're glad to have you here still on this Wednesday.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Their luck was bound to run out at some point if they're going to get continuously outshot by 20, 30, 40, whatever it's going to be. But back at home tomorrow night, we have a huge game tonight. We have Mavs T-Wolves to get to. Let's roll.
We're going to roll all through it. That's what the Jack of all trades is here for. So, Vecchio, you mentioned it, overtime for a third consecutive game where Florida outshot a lot of New York last night. The Panthers even up the series with a 3-2 win in OT. 2 games apiece here in the Eastern Conference Finals, making it a best of 3, where the New York Rangers will have home ice advantage at Madison Square Garden. Third straight overtime game, Tom. How indicative is it of this series and what we can expect the rest of the way?
I think that's, it's spot on. These teams are super close. The Rangers, as you said, as I said, they're getting outshot in most of, if not all of their playoff games, but they're staying in it because of Igor Shesterkin. So we can kind of build like a narrative of what we're expecting to see for a lot of these games. You can actually look at team totals in terms of shot props per period. So last night, the Panthers were minus 146 to record at 10-plus shots in the first period. I'm expecting that line to be around the same for the next game. Maybe it's a little bit better just because they'll be on the road. So we could look to that. We could potentially look to Igor Shesterkin's saves props moving forward if the Panthers are just going to be piling up the shots, piling up the shot attempts. That's where we can start to build some correlation. And it's viable to just take the underdog in each of the remaining games. If it's this close, if it's this back and forth, it's going to overtime, just take the underdog and go where the value lies.
How about some value for the series itself as we turn into a best of three, which will be Madison Square Garden, 2 games, 1 down in Florida. But yet we see that money line for the series shifting back to Florida at a minus 140 price and the dog price on the New York Rangers at a plus 116. The spread, Florida minus 1.5 games at a plus 205. If you want to take the 1.5 games, that is the New York Rangers at a minus 260 price. Tom, looking at these numbers, do you agree or disagree that Florida should be the favorite here moving forward in this series?
Yeah, they should be the favorite moving forward. They've looked great. I've said, before about them. They're just an awesome offensive team. They have plenty of experience. They're super deep. Bobrovsky is solid in net. I would still say the goaltending advantage lies with the Rangers. If they can get a little bit more consistency on offense, take a few less penalties, they could probably even up this series in terms of the betting odds. If you want to roll with the Panthers at minus 140, whatever it is, I think that's a super fine line. Again, also looking to these direct outcomes is generally my preferred route to go, just because we can kind of build a narrative of what we expect from the series, and we're trying to take a little bit shot with some better odds overall.
Interesting in the correct score market on FanDuel. You can't really bet either team in that exact direct outcome to win in 6 for whatever reason at this moment. For Florida to cover the series spread, a game and a half, the Panthers would have to win the next 2 games, games 5 and 6. That is a plus 205 price. So, sunrise last night. Florida evens the series in overtime at 2 games apiece. Edmonton looking to do the same at home tonight against the Dallas Stars. And the Oilers booked as a home ice favorite. Now, Vecchio, I warn you, before we break down this game, to your left, screen left at least, that's Donnie Draisaitl, big fan of the Edmonton Oilers. So proceed with caution if you are picking the Stars tonight, a team that you thought was going to win the Stanley Cup from way back in October or even early November. What happens tonight in game number 4 in Edmonton?
Well, all those things are true, and what I just said about the Panthers in terms of looking at team total shots in the first period is what I want to look to specifically for the Oilers tonight. They came out super strong in their most recent game. That first period they were obviously up 2-0, and they didn't sustain it throughout the rest of the game. So I want to look to the Oilers to come out strong again, somewhere around minus 150. I haven't seen the lines posted yet, but Oilers 10-plus shots in the first period around minus 150 is the spot that I want to go. I also, however, still want to be looking on the other side for Wyatt Johnston, over 2.5 shots at sitting at minus 128. He was the top-line center for the Stars. He's now back on the third forward line because Roope Hintz came back for the Stars. So while his role is decreased, Johnston is still the primary shooter on that line alongside Jamie Benn and Logan Stankoven. So the role is slightly changed, but the odds and the volume of his shots are still the same. So we can still look to him for over 2.5 shots tonight.
Taking a look at Edmonton going up against Dallas. Now, we just talked about a series that is tied up. This series not tied up, and that's where you see in the price points here at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Dallas a minus 265 favorite to win the series. Edmonton comes in with that dog price at plus 215. Dallas minus 1.5 years at a minus 104 to win that series by 2 games or more. Edmonton getting the 1.5 is at a minus 118 price. Before entering into the game tonight, wins or losses here, do we feel that this is going to be a long extended series, or in your mind, does Dallas take care of business tonight and pretty much that's going to be the series 3-1?
I think we're gonna be in for a long series, and it's just my personal opinion. So I think the time to buy in on the Oilers is now, obviously before they tie it up, before the series is evened and that those odds change. I will also say, if you just like the Stars, just take the minus 1.5 now, because ultimately I think they're the better team. I don't think any team can beat the Stars 3 games in a row. So if they go up tonight, that minus 1.5 I think will cash at minus 104. But again, if you're on the Oilers side, just take the Oilers now. So it's personal preference. It comes down to a certain point. I've already said I'm invested in the Stars to win the Stanley Cup, so I kind of have a bias. I don't want to put extra onto it. I don't want to hedge. I just want to let it roll where it is.
After a split in the first 2 games in Dallas, it was also evenly split in terms of the outright moneyline price for the Western Conference Finals entering Game 3 in Edmonton. The Stars minus 110, the Oilers minus 110, and Edmonton now a hefty underdog, but a home ice favorite in Game 4. If the odds follow, Edmonton might even the series tonight, which makes the Stanley Cup prices ever more intriguing. Vecchio, as you look at the 4 teams still standing in the chase for Lord Stanley's Cup, can any of the 4 win the Cup this season?
I mean, all four of them could win the cup this season, but the spot, it's super tough.
What I meant was is there somebody have an advantage? Yes, thank you very much. Go ahead.
Yeah, obviously, it's super tough. As a Rangers fan, I always have to put that out there. I am coming out with some amount of bias, but I also have the Stars future. So my preferred spot to go is actually looking to a Stars over the Panthers direct outcome, which I believe is at plus 340 or plus 370. Stars over the Panthers. I think that is a very realistic outcome, just how good the Panthers are and how much they're pouring on offense. They are looking better than the Rangers, and that's just a fact. So regardless of who I root for as a fan, we're just seeing some things play out on the ice. So I have to be looking to the Stars, continuing to stay with them, but looking to them in a realistic match against the Panthers and probably coming away with the win.
No basketball tonight, Tom, but we do have it tomorrow, game number 5. So I ask you this question like Ben, Mavericks or Timberwolves, can any one of these teams win this game?
Yeah. That's going to be the Mavs.
Grammar police, thanks for both of you being so specific and logistical.
I just said this on a podcast 40 minutes ago with Jim Sonis. I love the Mavs in this game. I love the under in this game. The Mavs money line, the Mavs all spread minus 1.5. The T-Wolves shot 45.8% from 3-point range last night. If they are just the least bit less effective from downtown, they lose that game last night, and this series is over. They won by 5 points. So the Mavs money line, the Mavs alt spread, the under, and PJ Washington under 12.5 points for the Mavs, sitting at minus 120. I do not expect them to play this involved, as a role in the offense moving forward. We're going to see the shots funneled to Luka and Kyrie. He's been solid, no doubt about it, but I just don't expect him to be that high of a volume shooter. So it's all about the Mavs tomorrow night.
The Mavs 5-1 straight up, and then get this, also against the spread as an underdog throughout this playoff run. Here's my breakdown of Game 5 for both of you guys, calling me out. Whoever scores more points, I think, is going to get to the NBA Finals, or maybe force a Game 6 in the Western Conference Finals. Good? That checked out?
Great.
All right,
great.
Good. Thank you for you both. And Vecchio, mainly thank you to you, the jack of all trades, here on this Wednesday on the early line. More around MLB. Donnie's Daily Play next.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called, or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report, and people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer, too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Lane Kiffin came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offense and defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. And it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
A ton of Major League Baseball to break down for you on this Wednesday, with a ton of afternoon baseball as well, both on the East Coast, in the Central Time Zone, and out west, where we begin in San Francisco. The Giants have taken both of the opening two games of their midweek set against the Philadelphia Phillies. Yesterday, in extras, 1-0 in 10. Zach Wheeler sensational once again for the Phils, but ultimately not enough to prevail for Philadelphia past the Giants. The Phillies have now lost 3 in a row. The Giants have won 8 of their last 10. What gives today with the Phils a -132 road moneyline favorite? This game starts a little bit before 1 p.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, by the way, what stands out, too, how about this? 70 degrees out there, which is like this game is in a microwave for how hot it is. We typically expect temperatures in that low 60s to high 50s at night, but this game being played in the afternoon, and as always in San Francisco, the wind is blowing out to dead center field at 9 miles per hour. That typically doesn't change on a day-to-day basis. But if we're looking at Christopher Sanchez and take a look at some of his advanced numbers, an 81 xFIP minus on the season, which is really good. You take a look at Harrison, who's at a 112, so the xFIP number is leaning towards more to Christopher Sanchez, and quite honestly, Sanchez on the season, 236 batters faced, an ISO of 083 and a weighted on base percentage of 307. That is spectacular. But if we do flip it over to Harrison, I just told you those xFIP minus numbers are higher for Harrison than they are Sanchez, but he does have decent statistics here. Last 30 days, been a 112 ISO power number and a weighted on base percentage of 307 against. So if I'm being honest, the Philadelphia Phillies haven't hit all that great. We already know San Francisco's lineup isn't that great. I do think the Phillies win this one, but return the favor on San Francisco in a lower scoring battle. This game probably stays under the total. I'll give the nod to the Phillies. Better lineup, better pitcher on the mound. We'll see if it plays out today.
Final game of this series, the Phils trying to avoid the sweep. Next up, we go to Milwaukee, where the divisional duel continues between the Brewers and the Cubs. A wild game yesterday. 9 runs scored in total, 7 in extras in the 10th inning for a game that was tied at 1-1, entering those extra frames after Willy Adames tied it up for Milwaukee in the home half of the 9th. Today, Shota Day. Shota Imanaga gets the start for Chicago. He has made 9 starts this year for the Cubs. They are 8-1 individually. Shota Imanaga is 5-0 with a 0.84 ERA, and the Cubs a -136 road moneyline favorite. Now, earlier in the show, Mark Zinno said he's fading Imanaga because of the classic narrative. They can't win them all when Shota gets the start. Are you doing the same, DRS?
I don't know if I am, but also when you take a look at Bryce Wilson on the mound here, he does have an xFIP minus of a 112, which you say, okay, that's above average. How's he doing for the season? How about a 2.86 ERA, which is phenomenal? But then again, you're going up against Imanaga, who's got an 80 xFIP minus, which is incredible, and a 0.84 ERA, as Ben pointed out. So if we're just looking at a pitch-up matchup alone, it is fairly good, which leads me to probably another under. But if I'm giving the nod, it's going to be to the Cubs due to how good Imanaga has actually been. If we're looking from a batting perspective, right? Just look at the non-analytics here. ISO power number 055, 221 weighted on base percentage. The only guys that are plus against left-handed pitching in the past 30 days for Milwaukee are Adames and Sanchez. That's it. The rest of the lineup, he should fairly get through easily. Flip it over to the other side with Wilson, as we talked about, a little bit more leaky against lefties than righties. He's going to get, Talkman, Bellinger, Happ, and Bush as lefties, so you're going to have more righties in the lineup than lefties, and that's really where Wilson excels. So instead of picking a side, which I do think the right side would be the Chicago Cubs, again, probably just more confident in this game going under. And if you're saying to yourself, I'm tired of getting burned late innings with multiple runs and home runs scored, maybe the first 5 innings under here might be your play for that one.
Can you imagine yesterday the Cubbies have a 1-0 lead into the final half inning of the baseball game? You got the under of 7.5. You're feeling great. And it does go over in extras. The Brewers right now, the top team in the National League Central. The Cubbies also a game above 500. 3.5 games the difference between those two top teams. And the Brew Crew a -110 favorite to win the Central. But pay attention to the Redbirds. St. Louis, the preseason favorites in this division, have won 8 of their last 10. Now St. Louis only a game below 500. Making a rally in the NL Central. World Series rematch continues today in Arlington. Some afternoon baseball between the Rangers and the Diamondbacks. A 3-run shot from Corey Seager. The difference yesterday as Texas takes the first game of this series 4-2. The Rangers a favorite to make it 2-2 against the team they beat last year in the Fall Classic. What do you think happens today in Texas?
If we just take a look at some RBI chances, you're probably going to look no further than Corey Seager has been tremendous. As we talked about, 7 games, 7 home runs here for him. 61 at-bats he's faced against right-handed pitching here over the past 30 days. How about a 420 ISO power number and a weighted on-base percentage of 485? But if you do take a look at Ryan Nelson, a 105 xFIP minus, which really isn't bad. It's about average. His ERA, though, Ben, is a 6, which is incredibly bad. So he's more getting a little bit bad luck than actually what his pitching tendencies are. But if we take a look at those hardcore numbers, 92 at-bats, 92 batters he's faced over the past 30 days, a 233 ISO and a weighted on-base percentage of 457, not getting the job done here. If we flip it over to the other side, you take a look at Dane Dunning, just your average pitcher here. So this game, I probably would lean a little bit more towards Texas than I would here the opposite side with Arizona, but no real feel for this game other than Corey Seager probably should be on your RBI looks today again.
Plus 300 to hit his 8th home run in as many games. Plus 115 for Seager to record a ribby. The Rangers 3 games below 500, 3.5 back of the only team in the American League West that has a winning record. That's the Seattle Mariners. Taking on the Houston Astros, it's basically a pick'em. Minus 116 in favor of Seattle, minus 102 on the other side for Houston. The Astros have dropped both of the first 2 games of this series. Can they pick up their first win with Justin Verlander on the bump for Houston?
Yeah, I don't know. Verlander hasn't been that good this season. You take a look at the pitchers today, Ben. I keep talking about 29 pitchers with 20 innings here on the season to rank them, and Verlander comes in 25th with an xFIP minus of a 121. But if you take a look at George Kirby, he's really struggled over the past 30 days with left-handed batters. How about Kyle Tucker? A 600 ISO power number against right-handed pitching over the past 30 days through 72 at-bats. That is absolutely incredible. And also, John Singleton, another left-handed batter in that lineup, he has a 241 ISO and a 387 weighted on-base percentage. But on the other side, if you're trying to line up and say, hey, man, what's Verlander been doing? Not all that much. However, I really don't like that lineup for Seattle overall. So maybe we do have a bounce-back performance in a true pitcher's ballpark for Verlander, where he's actually struggled more at home than he has on the road.
The Astros now have dropped 6 of their last 10 after playing much better baseball. More baseball and best bets next.
Missed call the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report, and people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
How fragile are these guys? It's amazing. They're supposed to be the greatest athletes in the world, and yet they can't walk and chew gum at the same time without getting hurt, for goodness sakes.
That Trout injury really is a bummer too, because people thought he was going to have a big year. And I look, I don't feel bad for the Angels. I don't like Mike Trout in Anaheim. I thought he should have left when his contract was up.
In-game live, prime time, only on SportsGrid.
With the onset of NIL and the transfer portal, it is allowing players to develop further in college, and guys that would maybe be stuck on the bench at a power program and not have as much shine are having the ability to find themselves in the spotlight.
Lane Kiffin came out and said we need to get bigger and more physical in terms of the offensive defensive lines, and that's why he went out and recruited that talent.
Inside the transfer portal, only on SportsGrid.
And now you have to qualify, and these majors, you got to go do it, man. Like, and it just comes off really petty to sit up there and be like, I'm not.
You know what you signed up for. So I don't like the pettiness, and I 100% think Taylor Gooch should be in the major championships. So in the same note, I'm saying this, but also it's like, hey, this is the world in which we live in right now, and you don't deserve anything.
Only on SportsGrid.
Some more baseball breakdowns and a best bet for you live right here as we round out this Wednesday on the early line on SportsGrid. Luis Gil, and only Luis Gil, on the bump today in Anaheim for the New York Yankees against the Halos. The Yanks, a road favorite, taking on the Angels today. The Yanks have dropped 2 straight against the Angels. Can they, or maybe just their first game, they dropped a game in San Diego, 2 straight in Southern California, I should say, for the Yankees. Luis Gil this year has been fantastic for New York. Does that continue today in Anaheim?
I think it does continue. I don't really love that lineup all that much here from the Angels, but really the focus is going to be on that Yankees lineup and what they can do against Tyler Anderson. Now, you might be taking a look at his statistics and saying like, wow, he's been a really good pitcher at 2.52 ERA, which on paper is very good. You might take a look at his ISO power numbers over the past 30 days at a 144 and a weighted on base percentage is 275 and call him elite. However, the analytics are disagreeing with what our eyes are actually telling us. Why? If you look at Anderson's 2.52 ERA, that actually equates to a 122 xFIP minus number. And again, that number you want to be around as a pitcher is 100 or less. So something has to give. This is the type of lineup that can really do damage. Having said that, though, the New York Yankees here, Ben, haven't seen a lot of left-handed pitchers over the past month. If we take a look at Aaron Judge, now listen to these statistics. It's only 14 at-bats. But when I talk about ISO power numbers, Ben, like a good one to have is like 170 or above. It's like, man, you're an above average Major League Baseball player with your power statistics. Aaron Judge through 14 at-bats is a 900 ISO power number and a weighted on base percentage of 833. So if you want a chance to go yard tonight with a pitcher that should be susceptible to fly balls, that's Tyler Anderson and that's Aaron Judge here. I do think Gil's the better pitcher. I think they win today. It is an expensive price, but if they win, Aaron Judge in the middle of that lineup is probably going to do some damage with RBIs, if not a home run. It's limited at bats, but he has crazy good statistics against left-handers over the past month.
Gil has started 10 games this year for the Bombers, but only 55 and a third innings pitched. So technically, he has not qualified based on the minimum amount you need based on games played for your team. But one of the best in the big, 6-1 this year for Gil with a 2.11 ERA. Donnie, we've talked a couple of times about the doubleheader in Detroit, so we'll just get your quick thoughts here. Tarek Skubal and Jared Jones in the opener. Total at 6.5 for what we expect to be a pitcher's duel, and then Paul Skeens gets the start in game number 2.
Yeah, we talked with Craig on this game, and Detroit does have some quality hitters at the top end of it, really only 2 or 3 that you can really rely on, which leaves 6 to 7 empty at-bats, which is always a tough scene. We know it's very hard to win a doubleheader, which means sweep it. So in that first game, you probably give a slight lean there to Skubal, but in that second game, let's just say in the first game, Detroit wins. Some of those guys will be on the bench in game number 2. Skeens comes out there blazing trails at 100-plus mile-an-hour fastballs for a full 6 innings. I look for a split in the series. Detroit game 1, Pittsburgh game number 2.
Let's just make sure that first pitch of game 2 is 99 miles per hour or less, that little sprinkle that we put on it. If you're a Pirates fan or a fan of the younger generation in Major League Baseball, you want to watch Jared Jones into Paul Skeens today. That is the future in the Steel City. Now it's time to give you a best bet. So before we say farewell and before we say goodbye, it is time for bye, bye, bye. Donnie, tell the people straight, what's the best bet on this Wednesday?
I love French fries, and I love David Fry, the Cleveland Guardians. So how about that segue into it? And the reason why Ty blocks on the mound, a left-handed pitcher, struggling against right-handed bats over the past 30 days. But if you are looking at statistics, Fry's been on fire with those fries lately. 667 ISO power number, 692 weighted on base percentage through 29 at-bats through his last month against lefties here. And did I say 76 degrees with the wind blowing out in Colorado? It's not a great price as we usually like. It's only a plus 105. But David Fry, my guy, to get an RBI in this game, plus 105. Let's do it.
David Fry, your guy at Mile High. Which way is the wind blowing, by the way? East, west, south, north?
Baby. Doesn't matter. Wherever the fries are cooking, he's got it going. So let's go.
All right. I like the look. Major League Baseball for me, Seth Lugo's on the bump for the Royals. He has won 5 of his last 6 starts. He's got an MLB best 1.74 ERA because Shota Imanaga has not qualified based on the innings pitched this year. Royals, an underdog to get their first win of the series against the Twins. Sure, I'll take it even in Minneapolis at plus 108. Also, over tonight between the Aces and the Minnesota Lynx, two highest scoring teams in the W. And the Aces not great defensively to start this year, over 169, or Jackie Young over 6.5 dimes. The point guard at the moment for Las Vegas. He's Donnie Right Side. I'm Ben Stevens. We'll talk to you tomorrow, 8 a.m. Eastern time, here on a Thursday on the Early Line.